You're not needed for the meeting. That's what Ethan said to me, leaning against my cubicle wall with that MBA smirk that always made me want to Lysol the air after he left. The guy talked like every sentence came with a LinkedIn endorsement. It's more strategic now, he added, drawing out the word like it needed a license to exist. The execs want to keep it tight. You get it? Oh, I got it all right. The kind of tight that meant without you. The kind that leaves a bruise you don't notice until later. I just nodded. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but the spreadsheet on my screen was a blur. A single cell flickered with a background refresh. Tiny, rhythmic, like a pulse reminding me I was still there. Don't stress it, he said, tapping my desk twice like I was a toaster oven instead of the person who'd rebuilt this company's entire reporting system from the ground up. Then he straightened his collar, shot me that pity smile corporate men use right before they take credit for your work, and walked off. My name was Alexis Warren, Senior Systems Analyst at VentureSpan Technologies, 12 years in, and apparently no longer strategic. I stared at my reflection in the dark monitor for a moment. The office around me buzzed like nothing had happened, people laughing by the coffee machine, Slack notifications popping like popcorn. But something inside me had gone still. The thing about people like Ethan is, they don't even realize when they're cutting into muscle. They think they're trimming fat. I didn't yell, didn't draft an HR manifesto. I just exhaled, slow, then minimized my work window. If they didn't need me for the strategic meeting, then they didn't deserve to see the rest of the playbook either. Because what Ethan and his PowerPoint parade didn't know was that I'd been running a shadow system for months. Not secret, exactly, just separate. A sandbox environment I'd built after hours because our official one was a dumpster fire of legacy code and duct-taped logic loops. When I first asked for sandbox access, no one cared. It wasn't connected to production, so in their eyes, it didn't exist. I used that silence like oxygen, cleaned invoice discrepancies, automated reconciliation checks, wrote scripts to flag tax anomalies before billing even hit review. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. A quiet system that made sense in a world that didn't. Naturally, Ethan loved the results. Copied my graphs, rebranded them as efficiency insights, and strutted around like he'd birthed innovation itself. I didn't stop him. I just logged into a different dashboard, one they didn't know about, and watched in silence. That dashboard lived off-site, on a dev license registered to me. It wasn't tethered to VentureSpan's production servers. It breathed on its own. That morning, after Ethan's little announcement, I closed my laptop, smoothed the wrinkles from my blazer, and stood up. No speech, no goodbye email. I walked down the hallway like it was any other Tuesday. Someone from HR called after me. Heading out early, Lex? I smiled. Apparently, I'm not needed. The elevator doors slid shut, and for the first time in months, I felt weightless. Freedom doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just exhales when the doors close. I wasn't walking away. I was walking towards something they'd regret ignoring. The first time I realized the system was bleeding had been 6 months earlier, buried in a vendor report that looked like a ransom note. Numbers duplicated, formulas broken. Someone had typed fix later into a tax cell. That moment broke me. Then it remade me. I started rebuilding everything from scratch, using raw exports instead of patched spreadsheets. The first time the data reconciled 100% clean, I laughed out loud in the dark office, the kind of laugh that teeters between triumph and madness. I'd found the cure for the chaos they'd all learned to live with, and I built it alone. Not for glory, for survival. When VentureSpan's CTO once said, "We're not perfect, but we get it done," I thought, no, I get it done. You get the credit. So I started building something no one could take, at least not without breaking it completely. I called it Project Lazarus. Cheesy, maybe. But it made me smile every time I typed the name. Project Lazarus started as a sanity check, a way to prove to myself I wasn't imagining how broken the company's systems were. I pulled data directly from raw exports, bypassing the brittle macros and manual fixes that turned every audit into a guessing game. Within weeks, my little sandbox was cleaner than anything our so-called enterprise platform could produce, and no one even noticed. That was the beauty of invisibility. The louder the meetings got, the more they tuned me out, the more space I had to build something real. Then came the first spark of recognition, from outside. VentureSpan's biggest healthcare client, Langwell Medical Group, ran an internal review and found 2 sets of dashboards. The official one Ethan paraded around, and another link they'd received by accident. Mine. Their CFO, a sharp, measured woman named Helena Moore, asked during a quarterly call, "Which of these reflects the real numbers? Because one of them actually balances." Ethan froze. I cleared my throat and said quietly, "That one's mine." Silence, then a soft, interested hum from Helena. "I'd like to talk about how you built it." That call changed everything. Within 2 weeks, Helena asked if I'd consider helping Langwell modernize their own reporting infrastructure. She called it consulting. I called it the first breath of freedom I'd had in years. I didn't say yes, not yet. Instead, I spent every night refining Lazarus. I added audit trails, visual alerts, error recovery logic. I coded until 2 a.m., fueled by cheap coffee and quiet rage. Ethan, meanwhile, was polishing his year-end strategy deck, plastered with screenshots of my dashboards and buzzwords he'd stolen from LinkedIn posts. He had no clue the system he was flaunting wasn't actually theirs. The week before the big board presentation, I scheduled a personal day. Officially, it was self-care. Unofficially, I met with Helena downtown and signed a conditional offer. Director of Systems Integration, Langwell Medical. Salary tripled, my name on the architecture, full creative control. A staircase out of the building. The morning of Ethan's presentation, I arrived 15 minutes early. The office smelled like burnt coffee and ambition. He was pacing near the conference room, tie slightly crooked, rehearsing lines to his reflection. "Operational transparency, strategic realignment," he muttered. I walked past him without a word, logged into my workstation one last time, and initiated the transfer. The company system would keep running, for a while. I'd left them a functional husk, a few scheduled updates, some cached data, and a quiet redirect buried 2 layers deep in the logs. Nothing malicious, just the truth waiting to be discovered. The line of code read, "Redirect active, external instance. Refer to A. Warren, Langwell Systems Group, a digital forwarding address. Professional. Surgical. Delicious." I shut down my laptop, slid my 3 black notebooks, my private blueprints, into my bag, and stood. No tears, no theatrics. As I passed the break area, a junior analyst looked up from her yogurt. "You okay, Lex?" I smiled. Never better. Outside, the sun hit the glass facade like a clean break. 12 blocks away, Langwell's building gleamed by the river, newer, calmer, built for people who valued competence over noise. When I arrived, the receptionist greeted me by name. "Welcome, Ms. Warren. They're expecting you." The words hit harder than any promotion ever had. Upstairs, Helena waited with a badge that read, "Director, Systems Integration." My photo wasn't great, but it was mine. We sat in a glass-walled room overlooking the skyline while I booted up Lazarus. The code hummed like something alive, clean, fast, responsive. Helena leaned forward, watching the graphs stabilize in real time. "This is beautiful," she said softly. I nodded. They never even asked how it worked. She smiled, their loss. Across town, Ethan was probably in that same boardroom, sweating through his speech, praying no one asked why half the charts hadn't refreshed since Tuesday. Let him have the spotlight. I had the sunrise. For the first time in years, I wasn't patching someone else's system. I was building my own, and I wasn't planning to look back. By the time Ethan clicked his remote and started his performance in front of the board, I was across town sipping conference room coffee that tasted like freedom. The Langwell junior dev sitting next to me kept blinking at the dashboard on my laptop. "Wait," he said, leaning closer. "It updates across multiple data channels in real time?" I nodded, smiling, and triggers variance alerts automatically. His jaw dropped. This is insane. Meanwhile, Ethan was clicking through slides he didn't understand. The first few charts probably looked fine, static screenshots of my old graphs. But then, the live data hiccuped. The bar charts shifted to outdated figures, Q3 values replacing Q4. I could imagine the flicker in his smile, the twitch in his left eyebrow. On the conference call, Helena's voice came through the speaker like a calm thunderclap. "Quick note, Ethan," she said. "Our reports are showing October data repeated in December's slot. Any idea why?" Silence. He probably stammered something about a rendering issue. Then another client joined the call, one of our secondary accounts. "Same here," they said. "Our reconciliation test came up 22 grand short. Are we supposed to be using a new portal? Because our contact said the old system's retired." I could practically hear the blood drain from Ethan's face. His contact, of course, was me. The CEO leaned forward, his voice tight. "Ethan, who has access to the real-time environment?" Ethan stuttered. Just ops and finance. Maybe Alexis, but she's on leave." "Leave?" the CEO repeated. "She only logged one PTO day." The CFO checked his screen. "Sir, there's a record here. 2 days ago, admin credentials were transferred from a non-corporate domain, awarren@langwellsystems.com. The room must have gone dead silent. Then Helena again, calm, composed. "Just to clarify, we didn't request access to your system. Alexis offered to build ours from scratch. Entirely new infrastructure." That was the moment the floor dropped out from under Ethan. While he scrambled, legal or IT probably noticed the audit logs lighting up with failed API calls, our old clients' dashboards still trying to sync from my now locked environment, like watching a digital heart flatline in real time. Across town, my phone buzzed. First once, then twice, then 15 times. I didn't answer. The Langwell dev glanced at my screen nervously. "Do you want us to let your old team know about the migration?" I laughed quietly. "Oh, I think they figured it out." The calls kept coming. Unknown numbers, my former manager, even the CFO. I set my phone face down on the table and focused on the meeting. Helena's legal team had already prepared the paperwork, IP transfer and rights confirmation. She flipped to page 13. "This clause here," she said, tapping with her pen, "confirms you built this under your own developer license." I nodded. "Non-compensated hours, personal credentials, never integrated into production." The CFO smiled faintly. Then the code was never theirs. "Correct," I said. "They used my outputs, not my architecture." Helena slid me the final page. "Sign here, Alexis. Effective immediately. All proprietary logic, architecture, and source code for Project Lazarus is transferred to Langwell Systems Group." I signed. Clean, no loops, no flourish, just fact. My phone lit up again. 40 missed calls. Probably Ethan now, his voice cracking, demanding someone get Alexis on the line. I didn't pick up. Helena's assistant entered the room with a printed press release draft. "Langwell appoints Alexis Warren, Director of Systems Integration, to lead Data Transformation Initiative." She asked if I wanted to review the wording. I read it once. "Looks good," I said. "Send it." When I powered off my phone completely, the silence was almost holy. For the first time in a decade, I wasn't putting out fires I didn't start. I wasn't maintaining broken things for people who didn't know what working felt like. I was creating something permanent, with my name engraved in the code. Let them call it theft, or luck, or betrayal. I called it clarity. 2 days later, VentureSpan's legal team finally broke their silence. The email arrived at 7:03 a.m., all caps in the subject line like a corporate tantrum. Urgent legal matter requiring immediate attention. The sender was some junior paralegal who once complimented my banana bread but still marked my emails non-essential. The message was classic panic in Helvetica. It has come to our attention that you have engaged in the unauthorized use and transfer of intellectual property belonging to VentureSpan Technologies. Your actions have caused significant disruption to client reporting infrastructure and may constitute grounds for legal action. They CC'd my old manager too, hoping to scare me. Cute. I took a long sip of coffee, smiled, and forwarded it to Langwell's general counsel. Within 10 minutes, we drafted the reply. Tight, factual, and lined with enough legal teeth to shred their posturing apart. Subject: Urgent legal matter. Attachments: IP declaration. awarren.pdf. Sandbox terms. Clause 14b. PDF. Dev access logs. Langwell. PDF. Dear VentureSpan Legal, please be advised that the systems in question were developed entirely within a sandbox environment registered under my personal credentials and accessed solely outside of compensated hours. As outlined in my employment agreement, Clause 14b, subsection 3, the company explicitly waives rights to any test systems not integrated into production within 90 days of creation. Project Lazarus was never integrated. Furthermore, your IT department confirmed in writing that the environment remained independent from corporate infrastructure. Your client, Langwell Medical Group, entered into a separate agreement with me after independently verifying the platform's legality and development timeline. Attached are time-stamped commit logs verifying non-business hour work and written confirmation from your own IT staff. I trust this resolves your concerns. Sincerely, Alexis Warren, Director, Systems Integration, Langwell Systems Group. That was it. No drama, no emotion, just documentation so airtight it might as well have been vacuum sealed. They didn't respond for 48 hours. When they finally resurfaced, it wasn't with a lawsuit. It was with a limp press release. Due to unforeseen technical issues, VentureSpan Technologies is conducting a thorough review of its data integrity protocols. We remain committed to serving our clients at the highest level. They didn't mention me by name, of course, but the whispers on LinkedIn did. What happened at VentureSpan? Did Langwell really cut ties overnight? Wasn't Alexis the one who built their system? My inbox filled with quiet congratulations and curiosity from former colleagues, even a recruiter or two. Ethan, meanwhile, posted a cringe-inducing update. Leadership is about owning the storm, even when the thunder's not your fault. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. He was still trying to frame himself as the victim in a story where he'd been the thief. But facts don't bend for feelings. The 90-day clause was real. I'd found it years ago buried in my contract. A tiny paragraph no one bothered to read. They thought my silence meant surrender. It didn't. It meant preparation. The next blow came at exactly 9:17 a.m. the following Monday. Termination notice, Langwell Medical Group. The message was 3 short paragraphs, surgical in tone. Due to ongoing data inconsistencies and persistent security concerns surrounding VentureSpan's reporting infrastructure, Langwell Medical Group is terminating our service agreement effective immediately. No PR spin, no room for debate, just a clean break. Helena sent me a Slack message right after. It's done, we're out, followed by a popcorn emoji. I laughed out loud. The fallout inside VentureSpan must have been nuclear. First, Ethan's profile vanished from the company website. No farewell post, no new opportunities speech. Then the CFO retired to spend time with family. Then the leaks started. Screenshots from mid-level managers asking if the Lazarus system could be reverse-engineered. Others begging, "Has anyone spoken to Alexis?" No, they hadn't. And they wouldn't. I was across town, in a glass-walled office, with my name on the door, onboarding my own team. A dev I trusted, 2 sharp analysts, and a project manager fluent in both code and boardroom politics. Langwell didn't want a slow pivot. They wanted a rebirth. And I was holding the blueprint. The rollout at Langwell was scheduled for the following week, and Helena wanted it to be public. A full systems relaunch streamed live for stakeholders and clients. She said, "Let them see what competence looks like." I didn't argue. The day of the demo, I walked into the new boardroom, a space that couldn't have been more different from VentureSpan's flickering fluorescent mausoleum. The Langwell boardroom had texture, polished oak table, built-in displays, soft lighting, and a skyline view that looked like possibility itself. Helena stood near the projector. "All yours, Alexis." I tapped my laptop and brought Lazarus to life. The dashboard unfurled like a living map: real-time vendor reconciliation, predictive analytics, contract drift detection. "Here," I said, zooming in. "If a cost spike appears, the system highlights it, flags the variance, and links directly to the contract clause causing it." The CFO whistled. "We can trace discrepancies to the source?" I nodded. "Down to the invoice line item." Helena added, "All hosted internally. No shadow IT, no external dependencies." A quiet murmur filled the room. Then applause, not the polite golf clap I'd gotten at VentureSpan's meetings, real, appreciative applause, the kind that said, "We see you." Helena smiled. "You've built something permanent, Alexis. We want this scaled company-wide." I felt a warmth rise in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Then let's build. That night, after everyone left, I unpacked a few personal things in my new office. A small photo of my parents, my old cracked notebook full of handwritten logic diagrams, and a cream-colored envelope with gold trim. It was an invitation. VentureSpan Annual Year-End Celebration. Sent weeks ago by some intern who hadn't yet learned I no longer existed in their system. I set it against the window beside the basil plant the office manager had given me as a welcome gift. Not out of nostalgia, just as a reminder of what I'd outgrown. When darkness fell over the city, I looked out across the river. VentureSpan's building stood like a ghost, its top-floor lights still burning, probably from panic meetings and caffeine-fueled damage control. I imagined them reworking slide decks, issuing half-truth memos, pretending it wasn't all crumbling. Meanwhile, my screen glowed green. Maya Klein, onboarding complete. Maya had been one of the junior analysts back at VentureSpan, the one who asked sharp questions and never took shortcuts. She'd applied the same day the collapse hit the news. I hired her on the spot. Over the next week, the resumes kept rolling in. Some names made me smile. Others made me roll my eyes. One was from Darren Holt, a mid-level manager who once told me I was too operational to lead client calls. His cover letter ended with, "Ready to bring my leadership experience to a new agile environment." I archived it without reply. Maya's I forwarded to HR with a note. "Offer competitive. She's worth it. No bitterness. Just clarity." Some people help build the house. Others just wait in the foyer for the heat to kick in. I wasn't hiring the latter anymore. By Thursday, I got a formal invitation from Langwell's executive suite to present Lazarus again, this time to a panel of hospital administrators and regional investors. "We want them to see what true transparency looks like," Helena said. I smiled. I think they've been waiting for that. The presentation went flawlessly. Questions came fast, sharp, enthusiastic. The system held up under every query, every scenario. When it ended, Helena leaned over and said, "Alexis, this is the benchmark now. You've set the standard." That night, back home, I scrolled through social media. VentureSpan's page was a mess of polite chaos. Generic posts about realigning client priorities and strengthening partnerships. Ethan's name had vanished from all recent announcements. The company's LinkedIn banner, once plastered with slogans about innovation, now featured an empty skyline and a tagline that read, "Building Forward." I laughed out loud. The irony wrote itself. They'd built forward all right, just without the foundation. And I was the one holding the blueprint. A week later, I found myself back near the old VentureSpan building. Not by design. It was on the route to a client audit with Helena. The tower loomed over the street like a monument to burnout, all glass and ego, but somehow smaller now. Funny how that works. The places that used to intimidate you start to shrink the moment you stop kneeling beneath them. Helena noticed me glance up and said, "You used to work here, didn't you?" I nodded. "Yeah. Feels like another lifetime." She smiled faintly. Then it must feel good to come back as the one they couldn't replace. Later that afternoon, I received an email from their CEO. Subject: Request for consultation. The message was painfully polite. "We're conducting a compliance audit and would appreciate your independent assessment of current system stability. Compensation will be provided, of course." I almost deleted it on instinct, but curiosity won. I accepted, not for money, for closure. When I walked into the lobby that Friday, the receptionist froze for half a second before forcing a smile. "Welcome back, Ms. Warren. They're expecting you." No badge this time, just a visitor key card. The elevator ride felt surreal. The same chime, the same carpet, the same faint smell of burnt coffee and recycled ambition. The top floor, however, was different, dimmer, quieter, less buzz, more static. The energy was gone, replaced by something hollow. The boardroom door was already open. The CEO stood when I entered. "Alexis, thank you for coming." He gestured to a seat, but I stayed standing. I slid a slim binder onto the table. "Compliance audit," I said evenly. "Current state versus required benchmarks." He opened it and visibly flinched at the first page. Around the table sat a handful of new faces, an interim CFO, a VP of operations who looked like she hadn't slept in weeks, and Greg's replacement, a man whose eyes screamed, "I've inherited a haunted house." I spoke plainly, no theatrics. "You're running fractured data chains, redundant invoice logic, and at least 3 third-party vendors feeding conflicting metrics. Half your dashboards aren't reconciling because no one's validating input sources, and your audit logs are missing 2 months of entries. If you're wondering where your client trust went, that's where it started bleeding." The CEO cleared his throat. "We understand mistakes were made." I tilted my head. "Do you?" The question hung in the air like static. Finally, he said, "Can you help us recover?" I paused, looking at him the same way I'd look at a broken circuit. Calm, analytical, detached. "You'll need to start," I said slowly, "by fixing the part where you called me unnecessary." He opened his mouth to respond, maybe to apologize, maybe to justify, but I was already reaching for my bag. "I don't do recovery," I said, voice steady. "I build from scratch." Then I turned and walked toward the door. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence followed me down the hallway like a ghost they finally believed in. Outside, the winter air felt sharp and clean. I stood for a moment on the sidewalk, watching the reflection of the VentureSpan logo shimmer across the glass. Behind those windows, a dozen people were probably arguing over how to rewrite history. It didn't matter. The story had already been written, in code, contracts, and consequences. When I got back to Langwell, Helena was waiting in my office, arms crossed, smiling. "So, how was the old kingdom?" she asked. I shrugged, haunted, still pretending the lights are on. She laughed softly. Then let's make sure ours never goes dark. That night, I stayed late, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I watched the Lazarus system hum quietly in the background, processing clean data like a heartbeat. My name shimmered in the metadata. Architect, A. Warren. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. I hadn't just walked away from VentureSpan. I'd evolved beyond it. The company that once told me I wasn't needed had finally learned the truth. I was never replaceable. I was the system. And now, I was building the future.